You can hear
Well,
me
good
okay?
afternoon, Hoagie, or Andrew, I should say. Jamie here for Blood, Sweat and Metal in Adelaide. It's been a while since I wanted to speak to you. But, man, we're going to talk about your new project, Contrive. Man, you're so excited. You've been over to Canada to work on this album with your brother. You worked with a couple of other people to get this album started. But now you're back home. How does it feel? Not just doing what you do in the music business, but also doing this project. How do you feel?
Oh, it's great that it's finally done. I'll just correct you. We actually didn't go to Canada this time around for this mix. It was actually done by Dave Young and his brother Mike. Of course, Dave's the guitarist of Devon Townsend Band. We just sort of sent them the files. It'd be nice to get on the Contrive private jet and head to Canada for the mix, but obviously, not enough fuel. But to answer the question, Holly, we are super wrapped that the album finally was finished. I mean, it was a pretty hard journey to get to this point, and now it's kind of a fresh beginning for us as well. So yeah, me and the bro are super pumped that the album's out, and people are starting to respond quite well to it, which is always a bonus. And yeah, we'll just get back out there again.
By doing this project too, there's been a lot of promotion. I mean, you for one been promoting it on your 24/7 radio show as well, but just to get the name out there, get the project out there to a lot of hands, do you see a lot of people, not just in Melbourne and Sydney on the East Coast, but all around Australia, getting itchy fingers on this new project? Because, as you know as well as I do, it's very hard to get your project into a lot of hands now due to the record side of things, the business side of things. But put that aside, are you hearing a lot of positive stuff on the streets about this new album that you have?
Yeah, a few reviews have already come through. It's pretty early days, of course. It's only been out for about 5 days. But so far, so good. Most people are starting to sort of get it and at least give it the time to write something positive about it. As far as the record label stuff, I mean, that whole world to me is turned on its head. I think it's easy to get your music out there, but it's harder for everyone to take notice purely because we're in a society of distraction and options, and there's a ton more bands out there than ever before. You don't really need a label to sort of get your stuff out there. It's all just online. It's just being noticed in a sea of other bands is the hardest thing. Getting people's attention, having people notice what you're doing. That's probably the hardest thing now. Labels, they'll always have their place, but the music industry as it once was, to me, is never going to recover back to, as some would say, the old days. That's life, evolution. Things are always going to constantly change. And, I'm kind of glad in a lot of ways, because I'm sure if it was the music business 15 years ago, we probably wouldn't get a look in. It was always limited to the right A&R and who you'd butter up to get, your stuff heard. And there was a lot of games back then, but today anyone can have a go and put their music out there, and it's just all a matter of what's going to resonate with an audience. And there's lots of artists out there doing massive things that probably never would have got there if they were in the old model of the music business. So I think it's a positive that it's open now for anybody. It's just, like I mentioned, making sure that you find a strategic way in to get people's attention and have them sort of sit up and take notice of you. That's the hardest thing, breaking through the attention spans of society. There's so many things that we have at our disposal now, a billion TV shows, a billion channels, streaming this, streaming that. That's the hardest thing, getting attention by people, is that, rather than sort of getting your music heard by, industry heavyweights and things like that. It's nice to be acknowledged in that respect, but you've got to take it to the people, That's my sort of take on the music biz.
I mean, I have to say this, you are one of the most humblest guy in the metal scene in Australia. You probably had been dubbed as the next Molly Meldrum. I mean, look what Molly's done. He promoted a lot of stuff on Countdown, and he went to Hey Hey It's Saturday and that, and you basically took the metal scene on board all those years ago, and you're still doing it on your 24/7 internet radio. But there's people like Higo as well in Melbourne. I'm in Adelaide. I think I'm in the wrong state, but I'm originally from Sydney. But the thing is, I was on not commercial, I was on an independent community radio program back in 2010. As soon as you mention metal, or metal music in general, especially in the radio side of things, whether it's commercial or community radio, a lot of the engineers behind the scene don't want a bar of it. And that's where it's a divide. Like, there's so much new metal or hard rock or whatever you want to call it on the streets. There's bands galore here in Australia that want to get the foot in the door. But with radio stations, as we know, the big top ones that won't play these bands, not getting these bands a push. And we're talking of bands like Airborne, who's been in Australia for so many years, but top-notch radio stations will not play it. Do you find it a problem now where people are busting their bums or balls just to do an album, but yet when they want to get the other side of the recognition type of thing, getting their songs played on air? I mean, we play it because we do independent radio stuff, but to get their material heard is a lot harder now than what it was back in the 80s, 70s, because in the old days, if you weren't getting played, you weren't going to be a big band. But unfortunately, like bands like Iron Maiden and Metallica and Judas Priest, they were big, and yet most of their stuff wasn't getting played on the radio. Do you see, as a person in the journalism side of things, we'll go back to your band in a minute, but let's go into the journalism for a moment or two. Do you see a different... I know there's so many platforms like YouTube and Spotify and iTunes, but I mean, I'm taking that out of the way. With bands that trying to come up in the scene now is a lot harder than it was 20 years ago because, one, we don't have a lot of record labels as we do back then, and two, a lot of radio stations are not playing metal, especially if you mention metal, you get shut down because it's too offensive.
Well, it's a pretty long-winded question, but I think that I believe if you're more referring to commercial radio, it certainly has its place, but my take is that it's all about niche markets now. Big audiences are diminishing because people are growing, their tastes are changing, they're liking a lot of different things rather than just being spoon-fed one area of stuff as things used to be back then. You'd find out through radio or TV. Now people are finding out through podcasts. They're finding information and learning through YouTube and Spotify and all that sort of stuff. So if we didn't have all that sort of stuff, well, then the industry would have stayed the same, and then, yeah, it would have been a lot difficult. But I always tell bands, don't think that, just because you didn't get played on triple such and whatever, that you've failed or your band isn't good enough. I mean, yeah, you might tap into their audience if you get that opportunity, but still get out there and take it to the people. I think Iron Maiden, the perfect band, have done that. They've never had airplay and never relied on it, and they took their brand and took it to the people, and they did it through sheer hard work, and it paid off. So I think it's a different landscape today. I think people need to change their way of thinking about it, and the fact that the old model is just diminishing. As you mentioned about Airborne, yeah, I mean, they sound as Australian as AC/DC sound as Australian. Obviously, their influences are there, but they've been smart in the fact of going where their market is. They know Australia is not going to give them a much loving on a commercial front. It's happened the last 3-4 albums they've put out. They haven't had much love on the commercial radio side of things. But they've just gone, we're going to go somewhere where people appreciate this, and that's why they're huge in Europe, and they're over there now, and they go back there regularly because they've built an audience that they know is there. There's no point wasting your time around a place that you don't have an audience for, because it's kind of a waste of time. You might crack through eventually, maybe, you don't know, but I just think after time you'd probably realise that, this is kind of a waste. Let's just sort of I always tell bands, think globally now. The world is so much smaller, and there's more option to get international notoriety or gain some international opportunities. I mean, the amount of bands in this country, Australian metal, that I'm talking about, that are touring Europe every week, it practically seems, it's just enormous now. It wouldn't have happened 10 years ago. Only a couple got through. Now it's an open market, and I don't think some of those bands are sitting home here waiting to get played on a bigger station and hope that this big audience is going to come running. It doesn't work like that anymore. I think it's just get out and take it to the people, and build your sort of network from there. So that's what I tell people. Certain mainstream media will always have its place. Some people like to stay safe and stick with that, and that's fine. But there's far too many options now to be stuck in that old way of thinking, because you're selling yourself short if you're not sort of, as my dad always said, take your blinkers off and sort of look around you instead of just sort of looking straight ahead and nothing else on the left or the right-hand side. So, I hope that sort of answers your question as far as the view on the industry and bands making it harder. As I said, the hardest thing is getting people's attention. There's some amazing bands out in this country now. It's not even to do with quality anymore that they're not getting a look in. It's just getting people's attention now. Bands are of complete world class now, Australian bands especially. Majority of them are already on a major level that are touring at festivals like Airborne, Parkway Drive, Amity Affliction, Psychopic do really well. And they've just done it through sheer hard work, but also scoped out their markets and gone for those areas, and that's how you should do it,
I mean,
and if you get that extra airplay or magazine write-ups locally, okay, great, you've got a publicist that's doing a good job, but I just think, don't be chasing just one outlet in the hope of being discovered, because that's just an old way of thinking about it, in my little opinion.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I remember waking up as a 10-year-old kid and just trying to be like Molly Meldrum. I mean, I know I used to see him on Countdown and Hey Hey It's Saturday for a lot of years, and the way that he was pushing a lot of talent, especially here in Australia. I mean, when we had Mushroom Records skyrocketing here in Australia back in the 80s and early 90s, the amount of music that he was pumping on the TV was phenomenal. But nowadays, we can't see Australian talent, especially like I'm trying to push Headball here in Australia, in Adelaide. They haven't opened up for a band yet. They haven't been given an opening slot, and I've been pushing for the last 4 years and Fish and all that know that I'm doing it. But I'm trying to get as many South Australian acts as I can, not just South Australia, but Australian acts as I can, to get the recognition they deserve. And most of the bands that I do like, either one, have to relocate overseas to get that next platform of credibility, or two, they have to give it up because they're doing a 9-to-5 job and they're trying to cut even with their money. And I'm seeing a lot of bands are not just only doing it for fun, that's the main thing, but when it comes to the money side of things, especially when they come to Adelaide from Melbourne, 9 times out of 10 they're just breaking it even just to get back home with the fuel and whatnot. But I hope we can see another resurgence. I think it's getting there, but once you lose the fans, there's no chance of getting them back, and it's unfortunate. That's the way that the digital world is,
Yeah, but I also think there's a positive to it too. I think it's just, like I said, evolution. You can't tame the beast. As much as people rag on Lars Ulrich, I think he was right at the time at the Napster sort of feud, that if other companies stood up and backed him, well then maybe the model would have stayed the same, or digitally it would have been a little bit altered as opposed to where it ended up going. But now it's the norm. The beast is too big, and you just got to go with where it's going to go. And I think that's the biggest question. A lot of people are always trying to figure out, where is this all heading? But there's still great music out there, and people still look for good music. And I don't think that's ever going to change. People will still go to shows. It might not be as big, depending on what people do. Like I said, people have a lot more options and distractions now than ever before. it's just so many people, companies, bands, just vying for people's attention, you know, and that's the hardest thing to sort of just break through is I believe getting people's attention. As far as people, you know, breaking even in money, well then every band runs their business differently, and most of the time it is a pay-to-play kind of deal. It is an expensive hobby, as some would say, and you just got to be mindful how you run it, and if you can try and save some money, do it, keep it lean, and, you know, just keep an eye on how you run it, and because you can't predict who's going to buy what merch and how much you're going to sell. You just got to play the best you can and hope that what you do resonates with people. There is just no formula for this at all. If there was, there'd be a billion bands that would be on the Metallica level. Definitely not. It's just a lot of it's just luck and just timing and what people get out of what you do. That's it. It is magic in some respects, you know.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, going back to your band, I mean, with you and your brother, I want to just throw it out there to be on the humorous side. Which one is a bit more brainier and which one that like to pull more pranks? I mean, you guys are twins, so which one like to pull the more pranks and which one's a bit more brainier?
Well, I think Paul's a bit brainier as well, but he likes to pull more pranks than me. Pretty much. I'm more the serious business guy. I've come from the music business for a long time anyway, so I'm kind of just head down. We've got to do this, we've got to do that, tick the box, next. I'm sort of in that trench, whereas Paul's a bit more fun, jovial, and likes to, have a couple of beers and hang out and stuff like that. But, you know, he's golden. I think it works well with both of us. We've got a good dynamic, even though, yes, we're twins. We're still very different people. But, you know, we've stuck together through thick and thin in a lot of ways. And it is now, as I said, with the new record, definitely a sort of a new beginning for us. And that's what we've got to do, is just kind of get back out there and start from the ground up again and just see where it takes us. You know, that's what we're at. And so we did our first live show last Wednesday, just more as a celebratory event with friends and whatnot, and that was pretty cool. It was a bit nerve-wracking, but at the same time, it was a huge milestone for us, considering everything that's happened the last 3-4 years of our lives, and the fact that we're still, you know, some would say still slogging it or still going, but I don't put a time limit on anything I love doing, because time's irrelevant when you love what you do. You just keep doing it. It's just crazy when someone taps you on the shoulder and go, "You've been doing this for X amount of years," and you go, "Oh, really? Have we?" Okay. It doesn't. Time's irrelevant when you love what you do. It doesn't feel like that at all, because you don't think about it, because you're in the moment doing what you enjoy. So for us, it's exciting now. It's a new beginning to get out there, and as a two-piece, which is pretty daring for some bands, and a whole bunch of new songs and a new sort of writing approach as well. It's exciting for us to just go, wow, let's just that's what we're wanting to do, is just get back out there again. So starting to suss out bands to play with and shows, and you know, you'd like to hope that more people would come or whatever, but again, that's something you don't have control over. You can promote things as much as you can and throw money at it, but at the end of the day, you're competing with people's time and their attention, and you just hope that what you put out there resonates in some way enough for someone to go, "Hey, I'm going to go and check that out." And that's something that not everyone can predict at all. So you've just got to be strategic on how you go about it, and if it doesn't go great, well, just keep doing what you enjoy, and that's what you're there for, you know?
Yeah. Just one last question before we hang up on the phone here. What are the plans for Contrive? I know you're doing the 24/7 radio and that. Is there any chance of bringing the band on the road, so to speak, like go around Australia, or if not, just do Melbourne gigs?
I would definitely want to hit other parts. We've played Adelaide quite a few times over the years, and we want to get back there and, you know, just find a whole bunch of really good bands to play with. And I think the beauty of running, you know, the radio station, there's just so many good bands that I'm looking forward to playing with. I'm just going to hit them up and say, "Hey, I love your music. Let's get together and do some shows." That's what we're hoping, you know, try and find some bands that, I'm not saying completely like-minded. We like playing with different styles. I mean, okay, we probably wouldn't be entirely suited to a 5-band death metal bill or anything like that, but, we like to play with a bit of sort of diversity and different bands and stuff like that. And yeah, let's see what sticks and what good bands we can discover by also playing with them. So yeah, that's definitely planned at the moment to start getting some shows under our belts and booked and just get back out there again.
Yeah. Well, fans, thanks for joining us once again on Blood, Sweat and Metal. I want to thank Andrew Haug here. And also go and check your 24/7 radio online. You can go on their Facebook page, check it out. All the links are there. Also, with all the links for Contrive, there are some bundles packed. I know at the moment there's no vinyls yet for this new project. I know people have been asking if there's any vinyls for this at this present time. There's not, but there are some bundle packs, so go and check it out. And if you can, listen to the new songs. I know Hage's been putting it on his radio. I'm going to put one on my radio show here in Adelaide as well. We're going to try and pump it out as much as we can. And Andrew, I want to say thank you, man, for being a pioneer in the music business here in Australia. And man, I want to say, if I can see you here when you can, I'll be buying you a beer or two, man. And I will say this: stay thirsty for metal, man, because you are a top bloke.
Oh, thanks, man. Too kind. And again, like I said, it's great that folks like yourselves are still, supporting the scene as well. I mean, it can't just be from one collective. It's good to have plenty more out there, and as they say, more riffs the better. And that's what we're here to do, is just continually share our passion, and that's what AndrewHaug.com is all about. Is just continuing to share the passion from 1 hour, from once a week, 3 hours to 24/7. What's the leap, and it's definitely one of the best things I've done. Not the easiest, but still one of the best things. When I look back, it's coming up to 5 years now, and I just go, wow.
Yep.
It's something I didn't plan on doing, but I just as they say, some things choose you, and you just got to listen to it and go with it. So, yeah, keep up the good work too, Jamie.
Yeah, well, I'll be in Melbourne for a Sept. Are you going to a Sept?
Possibly.
Yep.
That's in a couple of weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll be in Melbourne next week. So I'll hopefully see you there. If not, I'll probably see you when I'm on the road again. So thanks for joining us once again, Andrew. I know you're pretty busy. You've got a lot of interviews promoting this album. But, man, thanks for joining us, and we'll talk very, very soon.
No worries, and thanks for supporting the album, and I hope you dig it.
All right, mate. You take it easy. Take care. Well, there you have it. That was Andrew Haug from Contrive. And thanks for joining us once again on Blood, Sweat and Metal. Stay tuned for more. There'll be more updates and regular interviews, and we look forward to keeping you posted. Take care.